very warm welcome to this special World Environment Day program organized jointly by the Center for Disaster Management Studies and Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Policy Research and International Studies of the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. I have great pleasure in welcoming, in particular, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, who is our keynote speaker today. The detailed introduction of Professor Gupta would be later on presented by Professor Bindu Bhatt, the director of the Center for Disaster Management Studies. But we are really very happy and privileged to have you in our midst to deliver this special lecture on the World Environment Day. I also take this opportunity to welcome Sri Sakti Sinha ji, Director of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Policy Research and International Studies, and Dr. K. M. Churasama, Registrar of the MS University of Baroda and a distinguished economist by his academic profession. I take this opportunity to welcome each one of you who is present today in this webinar on disaster management and disaster resilience. And probably today was the apt occasion for discussing this issue because disasters and environmental sustainability are closely linked up. We have all known that environmental deterioration causes the acceleration of certain natural disasters. In same way, disaster management can also cause some environmental damage if it is not properly carried out. So the disciplines of disaster management as well as environmental studies need to have sensitivity to the concerns of their respective areas and integrate environmental sustainability concerns in the disaster management strategies and approach. So we thought that today's World Environment Day should be commemorated by us with a focus on disaster management.
Hello.
And the strategies which are environmentally sustainable for disaster management.
यार प्लीज कीप योर माइक म्यूट पर रखो भाई माइक बोलो मत बीच में कोई बोल रहा है माइक म्यूट पर रखिए
The admin can also mute the participants. Without taking too much of time, I now invite Sri Sakti Sinha ji, who is director of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Policy Research and International Studies and a very distinguished bureaucrat and civil servant by profession. He has held several positions in his distinguished career. Most notable among them has been his stint with the Prime Minister's office during the tenure of Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee as the Prime Minister of India. And he is also a prolific writer with a lot of articles and books to his credit. So may I now invite Sri Sakti Sinha ji kindly to give his occasional remarks on this occasion. Sri Sakti Sinha ji.
Thank you, Professor Lakia. Our guest speaker today, Dr. Anil Gupta, Dr. Bindu Bhatt. Happy to see our registrar Dr. also here. Friends, we had actually one more speaker, Dr. Divya Sharma, but she fell ill, so आज हमारे साथ वो नहीं है. Sad, but wonderful these days. जैसे and I will just speak from some personal experience. I was Chief Secretary Andamans, 2009-2012. We were still recovering from the famous tsunami of 2004, devastating tsunami, which in the southern district of Nicobar did a lot of damage in terms of human life, and some islands have become 1/3 smaller. Entire thing was devastated. So we were rebuilding the whole society, basically the social infrastructure, roads, houses, hospitals, schools, jetties, everything. and preparing for disasters, because tsunami had a tangible in 1891 and again in 2004. तो लोग कहते थे roughly 100 साल में एक बार सुनामी होता है, तैयारी कीजिए. So now from 2009 onward or 2006 onward, I think we are preparing for another tsunami, resilience. But this time Andamans has been hit by what? By COVID. कहने का मतलब है कि coping with disasters is one thing, but being able to anticipate and building in the risk factors to develop the kind of resilience required. It could be a chemical disaster. It could be different kinds of disaster. It could be an earthquake, and therefore suspicion on 5 में अगर है building banana hai. I mean, there are various kinds of methods we have to adopt, because especially now with climate change and what is happening, the number of disasters events, see the number of floods happening on a regular basis on the western coast. It never happened. Kerala didn't get floods once every 2 years when I was growing up. It's changed a lot. So इस changing world में किस तरीके से हमको cope up करना चाहिए, किस तरीके से हमें तैयार होना चाहिए, ये जानकारी बहुत आवश्यक है हम सब के लिए. Because if a disaster comes, like it has come now, we have great difficulty in coping with that because systems are not in place. Hospital beds are not available. Where the beds are available, ventilators and oxygen is not available. अब उस समय you either cope with the disaster or prepare for the back. Since you can't do the background work at this stage, you have to cope with it in an accommodative manner. You कहते हैं भाई साहब थोड़ा adjust कर लो. तो वो adjusting काम चलाओ मेथड से, जो हम जुगाड़ मेथड से करते हैं, वो इमरजेंसी में तो करना ही पड़ता है, मगर अगर हम तैयारी अच्छी से करता है, इसलिए डिजास्टर कोप आएगा ही. डिजास्टर कैसे कोप करेंगे उसके लिए अगर पहले से हम इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी ले लेते हैं, या डिजास्टर एरिया घर है तो घर ऐसा बनाते हैं टूटे ना, बाढ़ जहाँ जमीन आती है वहां पर घर नहीं बनाते, ऊंची जगह घर बनाते हैं. वैसे आजकल तो लोग समुद्र के बगल में और रिवर बेड पर घर बनाने लगे हैं. बेसिकली कॉलिंग डिजास्टर टू कम टू देम. तो किस तरीके से रेजिलियंस बिल्ड करना चाहिए, किस तरीके से पहले से तैयार होना चाहिए, वो बहुत आवश्यक है. तो आज हमारे पास डॉक्टर गुप्ता जी हैं, इनका मैं सीवी देख रहा था. वेरी वेल क्वालिफाइड टू टीच अस, टू टॉक टू अस एंड एक्सप्लेन एवरीथिंग एल्स. वी आर ऑफ कोर्स रिकॉर्डिंग द प्रोग्राम. तो जो जैसे मुझे खुद अभी 11:30 बजे लेक्चर है, वहाँ निकल जाना पड़ेगा, मैं बाद में अच्छी तरह सुन लूंगा और बाकी लोग को भी मौका मिलेगा, हम अपलोड करेंगे यूट्यूब पर, फेसबुक पर. तो बाकी लोग भी जो आज हमारे साथ नहीं है उन लोग को भी ये मौका मिले, डॉक्टर भट्ट के जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, बाकी लोग हैं, उनको भी एक मौका मिले टू ड्रॉ द राइट लेसन्स एंड हाउ टू प्रिपेयर इन एडवांस फॉर दीज थिंग्स. As I said, nature is undergoing tremendous amount of changes. I will not get into who's causing climate change. If you think about that, we are paralyzed. We cannot get into that. We have to think what areas, in which geographical areas, what are the kinds of disasters is likely to come, and therefore what is the kind of things we should do in advance, and not as a response, but anticipating it. इसलिए disaster risk to resilience आज का topic chosen by Dr. Bhatt, I think is a very very relevant topic for all of us. बहुत ही प्रासंगिक है और मेरे ख्याल से डॉक्टर गुप्ता साहब को सुनने का मौका मिलेगा. Very nice of us. So once again, let me welcome you, all of you, and I feel very happy that we're all here to listen to Dr. Gupta. Over to Dr. Bindu Bhatt to carry on.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Dhodakia, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Sakti ji, for perspectivizing the program and the lecture today. May I now request Dr. K.M. Chudasama, our registrar, kindly to say a few words on this occasion, both as the administrative head of the university as well as an economist. Dr. K.M. Chudasama, we look forward to your occasional remarks on this occasion. Dr. Chudasama, are you online?
Yes. Namaskar, and once again, a very good morning to all of you. The invited guest of today's webinar, Gupta Saab, Honorable Sakti Sinha Saab, Amit Dholakia Saab, Bindu Bhatt Madam, the national and international level participants, academic scholars, maybe some of them are the researchers, and even the policy makers. On behalf of Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, I'm glad to join the webinar on this occasion. Today is the day of environment, and on those lines, with that theme, we have arranged this webinar, a joint effort by Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Policy Research and International Studies and the Department Faculty of Science. So this is in fact a rare opportunity to have the academicians and the learned people coming together, having a brainstorming session, maybe designing a strategy or discussing the issues about the environment. I am hopeful that the webinar which has been arranged today will be very much fruitful. As the officiating registrar of the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, I congratulate as well as thank both the departments for arranging this seminar, and it is wonderful opportunity. I need not take much time for my because I also want to listen to the experts inputs as well as the interaction which will be going on in the coming hours. So with the note of appreciation on behalf of Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, I thank as well as appreciate this effort, and let us start with the inputs and interaction of this seminar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chudasama. We are indeed thankful to you and the entire university administration for supporting both these organizations always without any hesitation. And thank you also for sparing your valuable time despite your busy schedule. Now I will request Professor Bindu Bhatt, who is the head of the Department of Geography at the MS University of Baroda and director of the Center for Disaster Management Studies at the university. And she has also invested quite a lot of her academic efforts in disaster management studies. Kindly to introduce Professor Gupta for the audience today, and also to speak on her behalf as the director of the Center for Disaster Management Studies. Over to you, Professor Bindu Bhatt.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome and a very warm good morning. On behalf of Center for Disaster Management Studies, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, and the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Policy Research and International Studies, I welcome you all to this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the Center for Disaster Management Studies is a passion and rests on the brainstorming contribution of many. I thank our dynamic and foresighted Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir for his guidance and encouragement. We stand here today. I would also like to thank Registrar Sir, who is always positive and open to the ideas. I know, sir, out of your busy schedule, you are with us here today. Thank you very much. It would be unjust if I don't mention involvement of Dr. Jigar Inamdar, sir, a young, vibrant, and a very active syndicate member who actually visualized and rolled the idea. Thank you, Jigar Bhai, for your constant support. The center will always be grateful to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Center for Disaster Management Studies was inaugurated by Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat, Shri Vijayabhai Rupani, on 25th December 2019. But owing to the pandemic of COVID-19, the crisis since March 2020, things got disturbed. Today's webinar is our first endeavor and will take off very soon with the blessings and best wishes of you all. We at the center aim to develop the human resource for disaster mitigation and management to protect the people, environment, and the economy and ensure a disaster resilient society through education, research, and development. The mission of the center would be to cater the advancement of knowledge, in the disaster management and respond to the sectoral needs and promote the positive practices. Hazard mitigation, disaster risk reduction, preparedness, response, rehabilitation, recovery, their linkages and interaction through research and other academic engagement. The center will promote the information sharing, integrating activities among the academicians, researchers, practitioners, and policymakers. This in turn will ensure the opportunities provided to address disaster-related issues, current and those of the future. Ladies and gentlemen, today's theme, disaster risk to resilience. Historically, world over, disasters have been managed mostly as after-event activities initiated on the basis of the damage assessment and deployment of relief personnel to the affected area. Even for recurrent disasters, relief and reconstruction were the primary intervention. Pre-disaster activities in the terms of mitigation or risk prevention were inadequate or even absent. Gradually, the concern over disaster occurring frequently was wiping away the years of development benefits in matter of hours or minutes, and the focus shifted to managing disasters rather than coping with them. The major catastrophic events have altered the trajectories of human survival and the quality of life. Over the past decades, there have been increase in the frequency and the severity of the hazards. The impact of disaster have led to the calls for improving the disaster action that move the nation from reactive approach to a proactive approach. On the way to reduce the impact of disaster on the nation and its communities, to invest in enhancing resilience, the capacity of the household, communities, countries to cope with and adapt to the shocks and stressors associated with the hazards. There are emerging evidences that disaster resilience has been effective in saving the lives and protecting infrastructure. Building disaster resilience is more cost effective and sustainable than the present combination of disaster relief and development. Of course, the terminology of disaster resilience is relatively new, but then it is now embodied into the policy framework. A resilience revolution, highlighting the capacity for reorganization and transformation, takes into account both the events, that is the shocks, and the disturbances, that is the trends, and is closely related with capability and ability of an element to return to the stable state after disruption. Building on the Yokohama strategy and in the recognition of the needs to address the multidimensional aspect of the disaster risk from the development perspective and the Hugo framework for the action, building the resilience of the nation and communities to disaster. It also underpins the UN Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the Millennium Goals. The 4 Rs attributing to the qualities of the resilience, rapidity, robustness, redundancy, and the resourcefulness. Ladies and gentlemen, a resilient system, a community, should be capable of anticipating any given crisis, take preventive steps, respond effectively in the case of a disaster strike, and afterwards build back better than before. Understanding, managing, reducing disaster risk provide a foundation for building resilience to the disaster. community participation is equally important. The physical infrastructure, the socio-economic health, the health and education of its citizens, and its natural environment are strong. Building resilience to hazard can have wide-reaching positive effect in the fragile state and a violent conflict of the ecosystem services and the ecosystem restoration. Today's theme of the World Environment Day 2021. Before I stop, developing resilience is like overcoming and growing from the setback. Here, now I would like to introduce the speaker of the day, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta. Sir, it is a great honor to introduce you. Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta is sustainability risk management strategist working in the area of disaster management, environment, and climate resilience for more than 25 years. He has credit for preparation of national and sectoral disaster management plans, human resource capacity development plans, national action plan for chemical disaster management, draft manuals, instruction, expansion and strengthening plan, and guided related subnational planning, climate action, SDGs implementation. He is also a member of government ministerial delegation abroad, contributing to international policy processes, including the Bangkok Declaration, HFA2. To source credit, there are several books, chapters, guidance manuals, and policy research papers. His contribution is noteworthy in the field of EIA, risk vulnerability studies, impact and need analysis. Currently full-time professor at National Institute of Disaster Management, he heads the Division of Environment and Disaster Risk Management. He is also program director at the Center for Excellence on Climate Resilience and implementing a variety of projects. There are several other feathers in the head of the sword. What he is going to talk to us today is about the disaster management, second generation paradigm to integrated resilience. Over to you, Gupta sir.
Very good morning to everyone. Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir.
बहुत नमस्कार सभी को नमस्कार. Very good morning. Professor Bhatt, Professor Dholakia, Registrar of the University, all other dignitaries, Sena Saab, all senior colleagues, professors from various universities, research scholars, students, people in practice, NGOs and all who are attending this very important day webinar. First of all, my greetings to everyone on the World Environment Day. This World Environment Day, I think, has a specific significance, and that is the reason I have customized my discussion today on relationship of disasters, disaster risk management to ecosystem services, and also to see that how environment and ecosystem services are important for sustainability and disaster risk reduction. Why this day is important today? Because it leads to global strategic interventions, and one of that is the declaration of 10 years period, that is the United Nations decade on ecosystem restoration. And I think many of us many of the participants here, they might have thought of a question. And in fact, I'm also going to raise certain questions. Questions are important. We should raise questions. हमें प्रश्न पूछना चाहिए. हमें प्रश्न खुद से पूछना चाहिए. हमें प्रश्न दूसरों से भी पूछना चाहिए. We should ask ourselves also. And what are the key questions that are emerging on the occasion of this World Environment Day? Very first thing, that why it was required to declare the 1 decade period of the United Nations as eco-restoration, as the World UN Decade for Eco-Restoration. As a topic assigned to me by Professor Bhatt is related to paradigm shift, and I added to that a second paradigm shift. So the very first question, that why it was required by the United Nations to declare this 10 years period starting today as the United Nations Decade for Eco-Restoration. And I think the answer, to some extent, maybe it is partial, is embedded in the term itself, eco-restoration. Restoration means recovering or restoring something which is lost. So, strategically very, very important. It means globally we have recognized that there has been significant loss. Otherwise, at many forums, we have conflicts, we have confusions, we have difference of opinions, and we do not agree that environment has really faced a severe level of damage or destruction or losses. So now this is official recognition that environment and ecosystem services are lost. And that is the reason now we are trying to restore it. And that is the reason term eco-restoration. So this is point number 1. The point number 2, or I would say the question number 2, again a very interesting fact. Very interesting fact that now at this moment we are talking about ecosystems. Ecosystems means nature, our natural resources, our natural environment. And the reality of environment, our ecosystems, is also being stored in our understanding. Why I am saying so? Because the word ecosystem or word environment has been used in past 30 years or 40 years time in different non-environmental contexts also. Sometimes people started discussing about political environment, social environment, these kind of things which were not actually related with ecosystems. I also recall somebody talking about ecosystems in context with non-ecosystem concerns. Like they were talking about relationship between various stakeholders as ecosystems. So, in fact, this has actually diluted the concerns of nature conservation, our ecosystem services, and its importance in sustainability and also in sustainable economic development. This is also important to look at the journey of the past. What is the journey of the past? Many of us would recall that we started the journey of environmental awakening on 5th June 1972. 1972 was the first United Nations World level conference on the title Human Environment. And very interestingly, that was the first time, because there were international activists, there were international scientists. I refer to a book called Silent Spring that was written by the author Rachel Carson. She had written that how ecosystems are being polluted and contaminated by the overuse of pesticides and the chemical ingredients in agriculture, synthetic fertilizers and all. and how the ecosystem services are being affected and declining, and how the contamination in various environmental pathways is going to affect the health of the people. Beside this, it was also the period after just few years following the Bhopal gas tragedy. Bhopal gas tragedy was the worst industrial disaster ever anywhere. And that has actually triggered very significant environmental awakening. So the environmental awakening and disasters, these two concerns have been related since beginning. Since beginning, people have recognized and realized that there are some kind of relationship between disasters and environment, maybe within the industrial systems and also within the natural systems. 1999, it was the super cyclone which killed more than 10,000 people in India. And we realized the importance of the mangrove ecosystems, that the areas where the mangrove ecosystems and other forest ecosystems on the coast were intact, the impact of cyclone on habitat was relatively lesser. And that has been witnessed later also. A number of scientific and cost benefit analysis studies have also been published. And this is the globally recognized fact. And in fact, there are international programs also like Mangoes for the Future, these kind of programs. And people are now trying to look at that how coastal ecosystems are important in protecting the coastal people from disasters. In the recent past, 1 year or 14 months time, we faced 4 major cyclones in India. And those were quite devastating. 2 of those were relatively more devastating, 2 were lesser. So this context of 1972 that I was referring to as the Stockholm Conference in 1972 on human environment gradually evolved and started taking more emphasis towards economic development, social aspirations. As we all agree that whenever there is a kind of a competition or there is a kind of a choice between the two, that is the ecological aspirations and social aspirations. Often social aspirations outweigh ecological aspirations and ecological dimensions are given backseat, particularly when we are to implement the policies and regulations on the ground. Because certainly the hunger, poverty, requirement of basic needs like shelters, like drinking water, like food, I think these are the priority concerns. But when we are focusing on these concerns, we sometimes compromise with ecological integrity. And 1972 till now, I think there has been gradual evolution towards non-ecological facts, because in 1972 we had the focus human environment. In 1992 we had the conference on environment and development. Then we started giving focus on development. Then in 2002 it was the Earth Summit, and in 2012 it was the World Summit. So how did we change? But after a journey of almost 50 years, 1972 to 2021, just we add 1 year and it will be 50 years. This 50 years journey, where in fact more than one generation have already passed from this earth. And after 50 years of our journey of talking about environment, if we are really required to dedicate a UN decade on eco-restoration, what does it mean? It means we have done quite inadequate. Our efforts have not been fully adequate to address environment issues. And that is the reason now globally, we have decided that now we will try to restore the ecosystems. And this is very important question on all of us. And I think we should ask this question to ourselves. But it is good we have recognized this ecological challenge. And many of you must be thinking that why we have recognized this ecological challenge. Because I often say that on this earth, we have so many life forms. We have plants, animals, bacteria, viruses, but none of the species is as greedy as human being. And probably that is the reason Bapu tried to teach us that earth has enough to meet the needs of the people, but not the greeds of the people. But did we really learn? Did we really implement that lesson in our deeds, in our developmental planning, in our developmental strategies? I think we should ask a question. Beside this, when human being is a greedy species, how the human being has now globally realized and recognized to have a UN decade on eco-restoration. This is because now human being at all levels, particularly we all sitting in the policy levels, we all together have understood, realized and recognized that now human survival on this earth is in question. So talking about eco-restoration, talking about ecosystems is not a welfare thing. It's not a charity thing. It's not something we are doing some kind of a kindness to the nature. It is the professional need of the time. It is the scientific need of the time. It is the social need of the time. It is also the economic need of the time. Because without ecosystems, human survival is next to impossible. Human survival to the long term is next to impossible. We all know that we are facing the brunt of climate change. And with the current pace of climate change, the human existence on this earth is not more than 2,200 years. Whereas, if we are able to reduce the rate of climate change, the human race on this earth is certain to survive 3,400 years or even beyond. So we have a clear-cut leverage of 1,400 years. And certainly, that period we can utilize to develop so many new strategies to survive even longer duration on this earth. Very interestingly, it was 2019, July 2019, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji inaugurated the 14th Conference of Parties of the United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification in New Delhi. UNCCD, COP14 of UNCCD. And many countries of the world, they participated. And very interestingly, some of the people may feel surprised also that we all together discussed and decided that we will start releasing land back to nature. Some people will think that how it is possible. We are still wanting more and more land. We are in fact always in a mood to grab more land for us, for housing, for industry, for our cities, for growing more crops, so for agriculture, for tourism, for developing more highways, for having new airports. Everywhere, whatever development we need, it is the land that is required. And from where we get that land, we have to snatch that land from nature. But we don't have an option. We need airports also. We need highways also. We need cities also. We need dwellings also for our people to live. We need industries also to advance our production and manufacturing systems for jobs. So we are in a situation of dichotomy. On one hand, we need to advance our developmental process. We need to improve our infrastructure to help people get better standard of living. But on the other hand, They are physical limits posed by the ecosystems, physical limits posed by the nature. And then when we confront with the nature, the result is disasters. Result are natural disasters. When we confront with the nature, with the river, what happens? Someday river enters into the habitat because the habitat has entered into the river. I am talking the most simpler words, most simpler language, so that I am able to pass on some message that this day of World Environment Day today basically is meant for. We have the examples of Chennai flood, we have the example of Guwahati flood, we have the examples of Srinagar flood, and many other cities also. In fact, at present, none of the city in India is free from urban flooding. If not fully, but partially, every year some part of the city gets inundated, gets some kind of flooding, some kind of waterlogging. And this is this new syndrome over past 20-25 years. This new menace has grown very recently. Another menace that has grown, that the flood prone areas also face the brunt of drought. The drought prone areas have started facing the brunt of floods also. The same place gets floods, same place gets drought also. Same place has to feed the high heat conditions during the summer. So from one disaster risk, now we have moved to a multi disaster risk. And that has also complexifies our challenges. Chennai, that faced a major flooding in 2015, faced a major drought in 2016 and 17. And that also faces heat wave conditions. And since 2015, heat wave is one of the recognized type of disasters. So how environmental degradation and new phases of environmental emergencies has contributed to new type of disasters. In 2019 in Delhi, because of air pollution, we had to declare health emergency in the city. It was for the first time that because of pollution, we had to declare a disaster, declare an emergency situation. So these are the new lessons, and more confront with the nature, more and more confront with ecosystems, more and more damage to ecosystems, more and more expenses on disaster relief, more and more expenses on relief and rehabilitation, more and more expenses on dealing with the issues of migrant people. And these issues are not only limited to certain pockets in the country, but from one state to other state, sometimes there are conflict between the states and UTs also. Sometimes there are conflict between the countries. On the issues of climate refugees or environmental refugees that we call, are the migrants. And that is posing threat to the development of their own areas, but the areas where they migrate, because a number of uncertainties are brought with these kind of things. So when I was talking about this COP14 of UNCCD, where we all agreed that we will start releasing back to nature, I think we all have discussed that there is no escape from this. If we do not give nature its own rights, the nature will take revenge. In fact, nature never takes revenge. Nature only gives natural process. The confront of human being with the ecosystems converts it into the form of disasters. That is basically some kind of loss or damage events. The environment always nurtures us. Environment never gives any kind of disasters. It is us. It is our failure to manage with the nature. It is our failure to live with nature. It is our failure to understand to live with risk makes us face the brunt of disasters. It is also very interesting that we have 3 global protocols. Professor Bindu Bhatt was also referring to that. We have Paris Climate Agreement for 2015 to 30. We have new set of goals, that Sustainable Development Goals. for the same period, and we have the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction for the same period, 2015 to 30. Very interesting. But on one hand, for achieving climate action or achieving Paris Climate Agreement, we have to move to cleaner technology. We have to promote more ecological conservation, promote the protection of water bodies, that we say the blue environment, and also the forest, that we say the green environment. But on the other hand, we want more and more water for the people. So on one hand, we want to conserve water. On one hand, another hand, we want to give more water to people. How it is possible? We say that everyone should bathe, everyone should wash their hands. Now in COVID, we ask people to wash 20 times, 20 seconds. And whenever they go out, they come back and then they take baths. But where is the water? And many of the places in our country itself, there is a scarcity of water. That is a great challenge. But yes, in order to protect health, that is required. So we are living in so many dichotomies, so many conflicting situations. On one hand, in order to protect health, in order to achieve SDG 3, we need water. On other hand, the groundwater board, state groundwater board or central groundwater board would be showing the maps which will say that many of our places are critical in terms of our availability of water. And even the water that is available is not fit for use. So I think these are posing new questions. And because of these questions, in fact, the new set of global goals were evolved. Because before that, we had the Millennium Development Goal, MDGs. But we all realized that MDGs that were primarily on social, economic, and engineering contexts, we could not achieve. We could not achieve because there are limits posed by the ecological systems, limits posed by the ecological services. And that is the reason MDGs were converted to SDGs. And the word sustainability, ecological conservation, environment below ground, environment within water, environment on the land, climate action, protection of forest, biodiversity, these kind of things emerge as very important aspects, water and sanitation in SDGs. And this transition from MDG to SDG has a very direct bearing to disaster risk reduction. And this also stems from the fact that past 15 to 20 years, globally, the economic growth rate is not increasing. The economic growth rate is declining and stagnating. For achieving the sustainable development goals, economists say that we need an economic growth rate of around 12%. But globally, all the countries, we are somewhere 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, that's all. So here, most of the people, most of the faculty members, most of the professors, most of the senior people, if they realize that on one hand, we are the luckiest generation in terms of technology. We had seen that telephones which used to have two-piece telephones, mouthpiece and earpiece. But now, see, within a fraction of a second, you can talk to anyone sitting in US or any other country, England or anywhere. And earlier, so kind of transition that we had seen in technology is represented by this evolution. We are moving very fast in robotics. Very soon, maybe the robots will be managing these kind of events. Robots will be hosting these kind of events, and they will be part of our life. Now, electronics has become part of our life like anything. Within just 12 inches, everyone sitting here in this conference is surrounded by so many electronic gadgets. There's a laptop, there is a mobile phone, some people have on their head a headphone, then they have a pen drive. So many electronic items are surrounding you. And we are moving very fast in terms of nanotechnology. That is helping us in improvements in medicine, improvements in manufacturing, improvements in chemical formulations. So we have seen the great technological advancement in this period, but with this great technological advancement, why our economic growth rate has not increased? Why our economic growth rate is stagnating? I think this is a question, and we need to ask a question, and we'll certainly find the answer. And the answer of this question of global economic slowdown is in the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment of 2005. The Millennium Ecosystem Assessment of 2005, that was a global, first ever global EIA. And first time, it was not the team of ecologists only. There were economists, there were engineers, there were social scientists in that team. And global EIA has been conducted. And it concluded that there is a period of, this is a period of global ecological slowdown. Ecological services, ecological productivity, biological productivity, forest productivity, water bodies productivity has diminished. Land productivity has gone down. And there is a direct relationship. Because of the diminishing ecological productivity, the consequence is economic slowdown. So that is the reason that this economic slowdown is continuing. And I think this is a very important lesson. And that is the reason this transition from MDGs to SDGs. And within the disaster risk management domain also, there's a new system, new approach that has evolved. I recall that it was 2010. I was invited to the UN campus in Bonn in Germany. And there was a conference, and we discussed that how ecosystems, livelihood, economy, and disasters are interrelated. And there, in fact, after a detailed deliberation of 3 days, we evolved a new discipline in disaster risk management that we call it ecosystem approach to disasters. Ecosystem approach to disaster risk reduction, ECO-DRR. And then when we developed the standards under the International Union for Conservation of Nature, then we started calling it nature-based solutions. Basically, now we are promoting nature-based solutions to protect our infrastructure, to protect the social inclusiveness, including how to address gender issues, including how to protect and promote livelihood support systems, how to promote health resources. I think there are a lot of answers this nature-based solution can give. And that makes a very strong argument to look at ecosystem restoration, ecosystem preservation as a strong means of reducing the risk of disasters across all type of geographies. I think this is very important aspect. We all know that climate change is known to aggravate the risk of disasters, particularly floods, drought, heat, cold wave, wind, dust storms kind of things. In order to address climate change also, I think dealing with ecosystems and ecosystem services with prudence and scientific knowledge is very important. But when we talk of eco-restoration, when we talk of ecosystems, I think we should also have a line of caution. Ecosystem is not only planting trees. I have myself personally witnessed many government programs or administrative programs. I am sharing the experience of my life, it is not just for a particular period or this period or that period. At many places, I found that ecosystems environment has been degraded in the name of environmental beautification. The lakes were filled with garbage and converted to gardens. It looks beautiful. But certainly in the following season, the city will face the brunt of floods. So degradation of wetlands, water bodies were done in the name of environmental beautification. And I think we need to have caution. When I say that environmental protection does not mean only planting trees, which tree to plant, which combination of trees are plants to be planted, where to be planted, how to be planted, I think these are the important questions to be kept in mind. Lastly, we have been facing for 1 year the brunt of COVID-19 pandemic. And this pandemic has also started from human intrusion to the wild gene stock. And I think that is very, very important lesson. That human intrusion to wildlife or wild gene stock, I think in the past also we had faced this kind of pandemics and epidemics like Ebola, nymph virus, Hini, so many viruses. And zoonosis is basically the type of diseases that comes from wild gene stock. So I think that is also a lesson. The data says that more than 24% of the diseases globally are because of the environmental risks. So I think eco-restoration and ecological quality and ecological preservation, managing natural resources, also holds the key to health system and health sector preparedness and health sector strengthening. I think these are some of the important lessons. And at present, protecting about ecosystems, protecting our water bodies, protecting our life and cities from the brunt of air pollution, protecting from the hazardous chemicals. I think these are the important key points that emerge to my mind, which should be flagged here during this World Environment Day, and also the entire period of 10 years that we are going to have in the name of UN Decade on Eco-Restoration. So I think I tried to pass on some of the key messages through my deliberation today, and I hope that I have been able to focus on some of the important key points during this deliberation today. And thank you for to everyone for patient listening to me. And over to you, Professor Bindu Bhatt ji, madam. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Over to Dhorakia, sir, please.
Thank you, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, for very erudite as well as lucid presentation, which highlighted the most important themes and issues in the current environmental debate, nationally as well as globally. Today was the day to reiterate and recommit ourselves to the imperative of preserving the ecosystem. And I think your lecture really helped us all in not just becoming aware about some of the key challenges and the dichotomies and the contradictions, but also it alerted us to the imperative of having a multi-pronged approach to restore our earth, not as a matter of kindness, but as a matter of obligation. It's not only government's concern, it's not only the concern of agencies and institutions, but it is an obligation that each one of us carries as a resident on this beautiful planet that is the earth. So I am very glad that you could highlight the economic contradictions between growth and environmental sustainability, how much we can really sustain economic growth which at the end destroys the environment, and how we need to have a balanced strategy of growth, how we want or how we should try to prioritize our needs, the superfluous needs versus the basic needs, and whether we should waste our natural resources on the satisfaction of superfluous needs and create so many challenges to our very survival in the decades and centuries to come. I think that is also another important point that he highlighted. And third point that Professor Gupta highlighted is about the need for global action. Yes, we are all living in nation states. We love our nations. We love our sovereignty. We have also our issues and conflicts and disputes with other countries. But environmental issues are such that we need to overcome the constraints of state sovereignty, constraints of state identity, and move to a collective action, a collective global action, because only a collective global action can restore the earth. And of course, the climate change agreement is one ray of hope that all countries can really forget their differences and rise above their sovereignty when it comes to collective challenges. So we are indeed very thankful to you, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, for very lucid, very inspiring presentation today. And I'm sure we will have many more occasions to connect to you again in future, both under the auspices of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute as well as under the Center for Disaster Management Studies. So on behalf of both the organizations, I convey my sincere gratitude to you for sparing your valuable time and for sharing your equally valuable ideas with all of us. Uh, because we are already past the time when we wanted to close this webinar, we will not open it up for direct question and answer, but I would certainly urge all the participants, particularly the student participants, to ponder more over what Professor Gupta has discussed today and engage in debates and discussions regarding some of these vital issues so that we are all able to carry out our obligations as Earth citizens today on this World Environment Day. I thank the university administration. I thank the staff members of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute for their strenuous efforts to make this webinar a success. And I thank all the participants who attended this webinar for their enthusiasm and for their interest. So with this, let me once again wish all of us a happy Environment Day, and let us remember the slogan for today's Environment Day, that is recreate, reimagine, restore. And that is the decadal obligation that United Nations has placed before us. So we need to recreate, reimagine, restore. And all these three words are loaded words. Let's reflect on these three words and take further actions at local levels so that we also become a participant in this process of restoring this beautiful world, restoring our ecosystem. Thank you one and all. And with these words, let me close this webinar officially. Thank you so much.